welcome to my channel. My name is Kevonni, and yeah, it's been a really long time since I made a YouTube video. We're just gonna see how this goes. I didn't make any YouTube videos in the year 2021. I attempted to make one video, but I didn't like the way it came out. So yeah, I'm back. If you guys don't follow me on TikTok and Instagram, go ahead and do that, because that's where I'm really good at this. I have to get used to doing it again. But anyways, in today's video we're going to be talking about people being sucked out of airplanes. So I do want to preface this by saying that if you have a fear of getting on planes, go ahead and click out, because don't be trying to show this video as an example of why you don't want to get on a plane, child, because I promise you, me, I'm still getting on a plane. I'm still going where I want to go. Okay, also I want to do a little disclaimer. If you are sensitive about people dying, especially on planes, this ain't the video for you. Go ahead and click out now. So I have 3 different stories. One is going to be about a passenger being sucked out of a plane, a flight attendant being sucked out of a plane, and a pilot being sucked out of a plane. This first story actually happened back in 2018, April 17th, 2018. And this was Southwest Flight 1380. So this flight was scheduled to fly from New York to Dallas. This was actually this particular plane's second flight of the day, and the flight was completely booked out. It was to capacity with 144 passengers, and of course there were 2 pilots. Everything on this day was very normal. There weren't any inclement weather that was expected. Everything was expected to be pretty smooth for this day. So the plane took off from LaGuardia Airport, and shortly after taking off, the plane actually started experiencing issues. There was a malfunction once the plane was ascending to its cruising altitude. The left engine, one of the fan blades cracked, and this actually caused part of the engine on the left side to disintegrate. So pieces of the fan and engine started to break off, and when these pieces were breaking off, of course they're in the air, so they are flying away from the plane, and one of the pieces actually hit the window of the plane, which actually caused the window to break. And this happened on row 14, and there was a passenger sitting right next to the window, and unfortunately this is going to be our first victim. She did get sucked out of the plane. Fortunately for her, she was wearing a seatbelt, so she wasn't completely ejected from the plane, but still, if you've ever been on a plane, those windows are really small, but the force was so strong that even though the window isn't that big, it still pulled her out. Because the window broke, the air pressure in the cabin of the plane did decrease, I want to say. Y'all don't quote me. I believe that the air pressure decreased, and humans cannot breathe when the air pressure is really low. So because of this, the oxygen mask dropped down. So all of this chaos is going on. No one could hear in the plane. It's just chaos and confusion, and at first no one notices that this woman is stuck outside of the window because of everything that's going on, and no one can hear. So eventually the woman that is sitting all the way in the aisle seat in her same row notices that she's hanging out the window, because she's checking to make sure that her neighbors have put on their air mask. So yeah, she notices that this woman is stuck out of the window, and at first she's trying to pull her back in, but she's not strong enough to pull her back into the plane. So she tries to get the attention of someone else on the plane. But like I said, there's so much chaos and confusion going on. People are panicking. They think they are about to die. No one can hear her and no one is paying her any attention. She's like waving, but I'm sure other people were also trying to get other people's attention as well. On this flight, as I stated before, the 2 pilots were very experienced and they did get the plane stable. Once the plane was stable, the flight attendants were able to get up and make sure everybody had on their mask and make sure no one was hurt. It is at this time that the flight attendants realized that the woman is stuck out of the window, and they tried to bring her back into the plane as well. They tried to pull her back in, but unfortunately they were not able to. So they did ask for volunteers for help to get her out the window. 2 gentlemen that were nearby, they volunteered to pull her out, well, pull her back in, I should say. So they pulled her back in. The 2 people that were sitting next to her on the row, they were moved to the flight attendant seats, and they stayed there for the remainder of the plane as they laid the woman that was injured on that row. They cleared out the whole row so that lady could lay in the row. At this point, once she's back in the plane, the flight attendants asked if anyone had any medical experience, and they get a nurse and a paramedic to assist with performing CPR on the passenger that was hurt. So while all of this is going on, the pilots have no idea that there was a passenger that was stuck outside the plane. It was very hard to get contact from the cabin to the cockpit because of all the noise that was going on in the cabin. So they did make an emergency landing at the Philadelphia airport, and I did a little bit of research to figure out like how long of a time span that would be from LaGuardia to the Philadelphia airport. And it is about 35 minutes. It's about a 35-minute flight. So all of this happened in the span of approximately 35 minutes. That's not a lot of time for such a crazy situation. And you can only imagine how long that lady was actually stuck outside the window. Of course, nobody's like had a stopwatch, but I believe the passenger that was sitting at the end of the row, 'cause I watched the video kind of like on her perspective of everything, and I believe she said that the passenger was stuck out the window for about like 10 to 15 minutes. That's a long time to be stuck outside of a plane window. But can y'all just like imagine being in such a situation and then getting off that plane and having to get on another one? Because remember, these people are going to Texas. They're going to Dallas, Texas. This flight is nowhere near Dallas, Texas. Philadelphia to Texas is still quite a long way away from each other. So I want to know, like, if you were in this situation or any of the other situations that we're going to talk about, would you get back on the plane? Like, would you get back on the next plane that's supposed to take you to your destination? Because I don't know if I could, especially this next one that we're about to get into. I don't know, like, do you think these people like was like, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and fly again? But this next one, this one happened back in 1988, April 28, 1988, Aloha Airlines flight 243. For this particular plane, it wasn't a like far traveling plane. It was like, obviously it's called Aloha Airlines, so if you probably could guess, it's in Hawaii. This particular plane just flew from island to island. That's the type of deal that they were doing. So on this particular day, the plane had already done 6 flights before flight 243. This one will be the 7th one. Just a normal day like the last story. They weren't expecting anything major to happen as far as going from island to island. And as the plane was getting to their desired altitude, they started experiencing problems, just like in the last one. Like, I don't know what it is, but like you're gonna see, like even in the next story, like these situations happen so quick. Like as soon as they take off, these issues just start happening. So with this one, the pilots, you know, they're living their best life. They are flying the plane and they hear a loud noise come from behind them, and they turn around, and when he looked, the door for the cockpit was gone, as well as he could see the very blue, beautiful sky. Yeah, it's not what you want to see when you're on a plane at all. Of course, things are just like flying all around the cockpit. It's a big gaping hole at the top of the plane, and the part of the roof was ripped off the plane, but all of the passengers were seated at the time that the incident occurred. However, the cabin crew was not seated when this happened. So this is where the next thing, I guess the next person that got stuck to the plane when this actually happened. So as soon as the roof ripped off of the top of the plane, the flight attendant that was the closest to the hole actually was ejected from the plane completely. There was another flight attendant who actually got slammed down to the ground when the roof ripped off. And throughout the whole time of this incident, that second flight attendant, she actually crawled up and down the aisle to make sure that the passengers were okay. And she is the real MVP, because if I was your flight attendant, I cannot say I would do the same thing. I don't know about y'all. Y'all can like tell me down in the comments what y'all would do, but I don't think, you know, I guess they're like trained on like emergencies and stuff like that, but y'all be on your own. I'm so sorry. I'll be tucked away somewhere trying to get me a seat. I don't know if this was a full flight or not, but I'll be trying to get into a seatbelt myself. The passengers that were closest to the hole actually did receive some injuries because of, you know, the roof is gone. There's like wires and stuff, of course, that's in the roof of the plane, so they're getting hurt by the wires, by the debris. There was someone who was severely injured. She received, I believe, a head injury because one of the pieces hit her in the head, but everybody else got like scratches and bruises and nothing that was fatal. But the plane was successfully landed, and I actually have some news footage from the passengers that I'll go ahead and insert here.
Around 2 in the afternoon on April 28, 1988, Aloha Airlines Flight 243 makes an emergency landing at Kahului Airport on Maui.
What really got us was people strapped in the seats, not moving. They're just arms dangling in the air, hair flying in the wind.
The top of the Boeing 737 peeled back like a canned good, turning the plane into a convertible. The plane had left Hilo and was heading to Honolulu when about 20 minutes into the flight, there was what sounded like an explosion.
I thought this was it because I thought we lost the pilot and everything, because from my angle, I only saw sky.
Then I looked to my other side, with my right side, and no walls. I looked at my feet, and I noticed that right next to my feet was just an exposed area, and I could see the ocean below me.
I was working in my seat in the back of the Aloha Airlines, and all of a sudden there was this loud noise. I heard an impact, looked up, and I saw that the plane was falling apart up in the front. Thought we were done.
Flight attendant Clarabelle C.B. Lansing was sucked out of the plane. She had been with Aloha Airlines for 37 years.
From what I gathered, talking to people afterwards, a few people saw her trying to grab the intercom, maybe to tell them what to do.
The plane had been about 15 miles south of Maui, 24,000 feet in the air, when the pilot reported a rapid loss of pressure that ripped open the plane's body.
Then I grabbed the
a piece of paper and wrote my notes, the last notes, and said goodbye to my family.
I personally thought we were all gone.
There's no panic or yelling or screaming. You know, people just put on their life vests and put our heads down.
The plane landed at Kahului Airport about 10 minutes later. 60 people were taken to the hospital. Lansing's body was never recovered.
So, as you can see, that's like a pretty traumatizing thing to go through, and you know, everybody just thinking they're gonna die. Like, what would you think if there was a big hole in the top of the roof of the plane you were on? Like, girl. Last story was going to be British Airways flight 5390, and this happened on June 10th of 1990. You know, like the other two stories, normal day. There was no inclement weather. Everything was expected to be easy breezy, but as we know, that is not what happened. That's not the case. So on this day, the plane took off as usual, and it ascended to its cruising altitude when there was a loud bang from the cockpit, and the cockpit door actually came into the cockpit. Like, it was, the door was in the cockpit, like in the, you know what I'm trying to say? It was, the door came off the hinges, it was in the cockpit. One of the cabin crew actually went to go check to see what was going on, because the door was gone and there's this loud noise, and he comes into the cockpit and the pilot is hanging out of the front dashboard, not dashboard, windshield. Is hanging out of the front windshield of the plane. Child, I did not get paid enough for this. This is not what I signed up for. Of course, the pilot's hanging out of the window, so he goes and tries to pull the pilot back into the plane. The pilot was hanging out, his top half of his body was hanging out of the window. His feet actually got stuck in the like control panel, like what they're using to actually like drive the plane, all them buttons and handles and stuff. So his foot actually got stuck in all that stuff, which prevented him from getting completely ejected from the plane. So the cabin crew member came and put his arms around the pilot's waist to keep him from slipping farther out of the plane. So eventually another cabin crew member had to switch out with the first guy because it was becoming too much for him to keep him in the plane, and the second person held on to him until they were able to actually land the plane. So as far as the pilot go, what happened was, of course, when you get to your cruising altitude in a plane, if you've ever been on a plane before, like they have that little seatbelt sign, and then once they get to like a safe place, they take the seatbelt sign, they turn it off, and they say you're now free to move around the cabin. Same thing for the pilot. So like once they get to a safe altitude, the way their seatbelt is set up, it goes across their chest, and then they have one that goes across their lap. And he took the top part of his seatbelt off, and I'm not sure if he kept the waist part on or not, but from what I heard, the seatbelt is not that comfortable, and it's pretty normal for them to take the top straps off while they're flying, which is what happened with this cabin, with this pilot, and then the front windshield of the plane actually came off. So we're gonna get into what happened with the windshield. In a previous flight, the crew reported that the windshield, there was some issues with the windshield. I'm not sure if like the windshield was like moving or if it was loose, but there was some issues with the windshield that was reported. So of course they took the plane down to maintenance, and for a few days the plane didn't fly at all. Maintenance was short-staffed at the time of this repair, so the maintenance shift manager actually did the repairs on the windshield. The unfortunate part is what happened, why this incident happened to begin with is because the screws that he used on the windshield, he thought they were identical to the new ones were identical to the old ones. However, that was not the case. The new ones were like a couple, like not even like a whole millimeter, just like a fraction of a millimeter too small. And unfortunately, all that stuff matters when you're repairing something such as the windshield of a plane. So they were too thin, the ones that he actually put inside of the windshield. And yeah, so that's why the windshield came off, because the screws were too small, they were too skinny, and I think they also weren't long enough as well. But I have other videos in my description box that are more detailed than my little summary overview of each incident. Also, because the shift manager was the manager, and at this time, like I said, it's 1990, the windshield was not considered to be an essential part of the plane, so no one was supposed to go back behind him. Not that they weren't supposed to go back behind him, but because he was a shift manager, there was no one to go back behind him, and it wasn't required because that part of the plane wasn't considered essential. So he did the work, he repaired the windshield, and no one went back behind him to check to see if he used the correct things to repair the windshield. So what happened to these people that got sucked out of these planes? So in our first story about the passenger that got sucked out of the window, she actually passed away like a couple days after the incident. She passed away at the hospital due to her injuries. And the flight attendant that got sucked out of the plane, completely ejected, her body was never found, and they just presumed her to be dead. They believe that her body went into the water, the ocean, and they just couldn't find her body. The pilot did live, and about 5 months after the incident, he did return to being a pilot again. So he continued his career as a pilot after this incident. I'm gonna try to do this outro before my camera cut back off because she's overheating. But anyways, if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, and you know, hit the subscribe button like I said before. Make sure you guys follow me on TikTok and Instagram if you guys like fashion content, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.